Today's daf is daf Nun Ches, and we're up to Michti, which is the end of the second line. Now, we had presented in Machlok Shin Ula and Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda about the reason why the Rabbanan suspended the right of an Arusa who's married to a Kohen, she's an Israelis, to eat Truma. The Torah allows her to eat Truma under the halach of Kinyan Kaspo, and the Rabbanan prohibited it. And there were two reasons that were offered as to why the Rabbanan prohibited her achilas Truma. According to Ula, the reason why the Rabbanan did not want her to eat Truma is because of the fear that she might feed the Truma to the members of her household. And that's called Shemiyimzegu Lakos Bebeis Avdiya V'Tashkel Lacheha Ulachosa. Whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rabbi Shmuel Bar Rabbi Yehuda, it's Mishum Simcha. So what's the nafkamina? Gemara now enumerates three nafkaminas, and we'll see a fourth one as we go through the sugya. So Ika Beinayu, the first nafkamina is going to be kibel. It means that the husband made a declaration that he's so eager to marry this woman that even if he finds a simpon, some sort of concealed mum, he would still want to marry her, go through with the marriage. So therefore, there's no chashash of mekachos, according to Rabbi Yehuda Bar Shmuel, and therefore there's no simpon, she can eat truma. But if we go with the reasoning of Ula, she's still in Beis Avdiya, she still might feed the truma to the members of her household. Number two, Mosar, which means Mosar Av es bito l'shluchei aval. So in this case, she's already out of the reshus of the father. We have no chash of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Shmuel's problem. Ula's problem of Shemi Achilu Lachel, etc. But we still have a problem with Simpon because the Bedika hasn't been made. She hasn't yet come into the reshus of her orus. And the third nafkamina is Beholach. If the father accompanies the shluchim of the Av with the shluchim Baal, and therefore she's still in the reshus of her father, he hasn't yet given her over to the shluchim Baal, but yet she left already the base of the Yod. There's no chash of Shevet Tashke, so Ula's problem would not exist. But nevertheless, we have to worry about Simpon in the light of Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah records now machlokas between Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva regarding an Arusa who marries a Kohen. She's not a Kohenes, and if he feeds her Truma, like after Yigias Man, after the 12-month period ends, then she is in a situation where she has to sell the Truma on the public market in order to buy Chulin. And even if she's a Bas Kohen, during her Nidas period, she'll have to sell the Truma on the open market. And Rabbi Tarfon is not impressed. But Rabbi Akiva is very impressed by that. He says, therefore, the Baal has to provide her with Mechza Chulin, Mechza Truma. Amar Abaye. Abaye is going to put a whole new twist on this machlokas. Machlokas bebas Kohen leKohen. Aval bebas Yisrael leKohen divrei hakol Mechza Chulin and Mechza Truma. Rabbi Tarfon is not callous and insensitive to the needs of the wife who is a Bas Yisrael and cannot eat Truma, married to a Kohen who's going to feed her Truma. And if she has to go through the whole rigmarole of trying to sell the Truma on the open market and come up with a price that's a slashed price, and therefore, says Abaye, even Rabbi Tarfon would agree that in the case of a Bas Yisrael, where she's stuck with Truma, he has to supply her husband's a Kohen, with Chatzi Mechza Chulin. The machlokas, according to Abaye, and where is it that Rabbi Tarfon says that the Kohen could supply her with Truma and only Truma? That's only in the case where she herself is a Bas Kohen and she's allowed to eat Truma. However, Rabbi Akiva is worried about the time that she's Tmeah and her status of a Nida during half the month or whatever percentage month invalidates her possibility of eating truma. So therefore, don't feed her truma that she's going to have to go out there on the market, sell the truma at slash price. The Yomi Abai now adds another very important point. Machlokes be'arusa. We're talking about a case where the Baal was tovea his arusa for nesuin, and now 12 months passed by. She's ready to get married. He's not ready. He wants to postpone it. And she is still now in the base of Via. And now, during her Tuma period, she's going to have to go through the entire tircha of selling Peros Truma in order to sustain herself by buying Peros Chulin. So we're talking about a Bas Kohen who's an Arusa LeKohen, Igias Mana Lisa, and Rabbi Tarfon says he eats Truma and he feeds her Truma after Agos Man. The only problem is that she's the base of Via, but that's not a problem because her father is also a Kohen. Narvas, during a certain period of time, she is Asura Lechol Truma because of her Truma, and okay, so Rabbi Tarfon holds she has to go out there, the hassle, and sell her truma in order to provide chulin. All this is during the Erusin period. Once she's married to the Kohen, and she's living in the Kohen's house, or alternatively, even if she's not living in the Kohen's house, in her husband's house, he sets up a house for her, or a room for her, and there's someone in charge of supervising that all the tzrachim that she has and all the mizonos are provided from the husband. We'll call him an apotropos. And Divrei Hakol mechza chulin umechza truma, says Abai, in such a case, we need to supply her with mechza chulin to cover the yemei tumasa. And it's not covered for an isha. Rashi says to go out to the shuk and sell truma in the shuk because kol kvoda v'asmel pnima. Tanya namihochi, the Gemara quotes a brisa that explicitly supports Abaye. Rabbi Tarfon omer nosnim la'akol truma. Rabbi Tarfon does not require that the Baal, who's a Kohen, supply his wife after years man with chulin. He can provide her with truma and exclusively truma. And during her truma period, she will have to do the entire hassle of selling the truma on the market in order to buy food. And this despite the fact that truma is going to be sold, as we said earlier, at a slashed price. And Rabbi Akiva disagrees. Why do we have to send her out there to sell the truma, which she cannot eat because she's tmeya, and she'll have to buy chulin at a slash price? I mean to say, sell the truma at a slash price. Mechza chulin umechza truma. So the brisa now qualifies this. But when do we say according to Rabbi Tarfon, the Kohen will supply his wife totally, exclusively with truma? That's only the Vas Kohen LeKohen, and therefore she can eat truma. And the Baal, according to Rabbi Tarfon, doesn't have to worry about the main needs. Avol the Bas Yisrael LeKohen, if the Arus is a Bas Yisrael, and therefore she cannot eat truma at all. It's Divrei Hakol, even Rabbi Yossi would agree that mechza chulin umechza truma. But then Varamu and Barusa, al b'nesua Divrei Hakol mechza chulin umechza truma. Once she's married, after the chuppah to a Kohen, she's no longer in the reshus of her father, and let's say the Baal sets up a separate bias for her to eat, and the apotropos is going to supervise that the mizonos for kol tzrachea are supplied from the Baal to the isha nesua. And at this point, she has rights to mizonos, and the Baal is going to have to, according to everyone, even according to Rabbi Yos, even according to Rabbi Tarfon, has to supply her with Metzachul. Now the Brisa quotes 3 additional Tanoim that we haven't confronted until now. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Omer Nosen La Shtei Yodos Shel Truma. The Achas Shel Chulin, 2/3 of the Mizonos should be made of Truma. And 2/3 will be made, I'm sorry, what did I say? I meant to say 2/3 will be made of Truma, and 1/3 will be made of Peres Chulin. That's his compromise. Rabbi Yehuda, a different Tana, Omer Nosen La Kol Truma. He's allowed to supply her exclusively with Truma. And he mocheres lo kachas b'damim chulin. She'll have the hassle of selling the Truma in order to buy chulin with the damim that people pay, or the buyers pay for the Truma. Whenever the Chachamim said that the Orus has to give 100% Truma, and that was the Shita of Yehuda, Nosin law kiflayim b'chulin. He has to give her a volume, supply her a volume of Truma, which is twice the volume of chulin. And the reason for that is because we have to cover or offset the loss of her selling Truma on the market. And therefore, we're going to give her a double volume. And even though she sells the Truma on the market at a cheaper price, but now she's selling twice the volume, and that'll make up for the loss of the sale price of Truma vis-a-vis the sale price of Chulin. But if you really read this brisa carefully, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, and Rabbi Yehuda are really saying one and the same thing. And that is that she has to go out there with the hassle of selling the Chulin. So my Beinayah, what's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? Both agree that the Baal could pawn off, so to speak, Peres Truma on his wife, and the volume has to be enough that she can sell the Truma on the market and provide for herself Peres Chulin. And Gemara says he could be an tircha. It's a real hassle to transport all the Truma over to the shuk, keep it alive and fresh and well in the marketplace, and then find a buyer. There's a tircha in the mechiras Truma bashuk. And the reason for that is the law of demand, supply and demand. There are not that many Kohanim out there demanding Truma. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we're not bothered by that. The fact that she has to be toreach in the sale of a Truma is not our business. That's something that she would have known up front when she got married. But Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, no, we have to give up Peres Truma. That's twice the volume of the Peres Chulin in order to offset the loss and the additional tircha that she'll have to invest in selling the Truma on the open market. The Mishnah says, Hayom Hamenu Machil b'Truma. If the Kohen is the Yomam, in other words, the two brothers, Reuben died, left his wife Leah, who fell for Yibum to Shimon. And right now, the status of Leah is like that of an Arusa, and she is a Shomeres Yomam. And now the question is, can she eat Truma? And the answer is, no, she cannot eat Truma. My timer, why can't she eat Truma? After all, Kinyan Kaspo Rachmana, if a Shomeres Yomam who falls for Yibum has the same status as an Arusa, then the Torah would say that in such a case, she can eat Truma, because an Arusa has the status of Kinyan Kaspo. And the same thing should apply to a Yomam. So the Gemara says, Hi di Ochivhu. We think that this Shomeres Yomam is Kinyan Kaspo of Shimon the Yomam. That's not so. She is Kinyan Kaspo of the late Reuven, the Yavama, and the Yavam is now coming to feed her, and he wants to feed her Truma, she is not Kinyan Kaspo. She's Kinyan Kaspo of Achid, of the late Reuven. Again, she fell for Yibum in front of Shimon. But that Nefila for Yibum is projected Mikoach Kiddushe Reuven, the late brother Reuven. And therefore, she cannot eat Truma by virtue of the Zikas Yibum of the Shomeres Yavam to the Yavam. Because in truth, she is not the Kinyan Kaspo of the Yavam, but rather she's Kinyan Kaspo of the late brother. Now the Mishnah says something strange. Also, so Shisha Chadoshim Fnei Bailo, but Shisha Chadoshim Fnei Yavam, or even if all of her days were B'fnei Baal, except for the minus 1 day after the Baal died on the very last day of this 12-month period, and she fell for Yibum, or Kulam B'fnei Yavam, if of the 12 months, 11.9 months of that period of time she was a Shomer Yavam, but there was 1 day between the Erison and the death of her husband, and she cannot eat Truma. So the Gemara doesn't understand the lengthy, wordy presentation of our Mishnah. Tashna b'fnei Baal Amrit Lo. The Tana of our Mishnah is already established that even if Kulam b'fnei Baal Chaser Yom Echad b'fnei Yavam, she cannot eat Truma. In other words, she cannot eat Truma Machmas Baila, even though she's Kinyan Kaspo, because she didn't have the entire 12-month period under the Baal. And now you have to tell me b'fnei Yavam, me boy, it's a kolshke. If she only had a shehiyah under her Baal that was less than 12 months, she cannot eat Truma. How much more so if she didn't have a shehiyah of 12 months up the Yavam? So why did the Tana feel compelled to formulate the din that Kulam b'fnei hayavam chaser echad ain't ochels b'truma? I mean, if it was Kulam eitzel Baal and it was chaser yom echad, she doesn't eat Truma because she's missing that very last day to be mashal in the 12 months. So therefore, she can't eat Truma. How much more so with the Kal V'chomer in the case where it was Kulam b'fnei hayavam chaser yom echad? Certainly, she cannot eat Truma. And the Gemara now employs a methodological literary rule in order to interpret the language of Mishnayos, and that's called Zu, the Ein Tzarech Lomer Zuktan. That sometimes the Mishnah starts with a bigger Chiddush and then adds the lesser Chiddush, which is really understood me'elov, but the Mishnah chooses to spell it out. Now the Mishnah says that the ability and the leniency to allow this woman after Shleimasar Chodesh to eat Truma if she's married to a Kohen is Mishnah Rishona. But Mishnah Achrona, the Bezin Shel Achreim, they prohibited it, and she's not allowed to eat Truma until she enters into the Chuppah. My timer. Omar Ula v'Yitem Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Mishum Simpon. So here we don't have the logic of the original statement of Ula in explaining the Gzera why an Arusa doesn't eat Truma when she's an Arusa to a Kohen. We don't have his reasoning of Shema Yachilenu La'achi V'Lachia because it's already after the 12-month period and the Baal has to give her Mizonos, so she has her own cheder, her own room. She's separated from her brothers. But there's nevertheless a problem if she eats Truma of Simpon, because the chuppah hasn't yet taken place. And if he finds her to be a Baal Smum, he's Mavatul Kedusha Mafreya with his claim of Kedusha Tos. And now it turns out that she's been eating Truma and she was a Zar. In fact, the Gemara, I can understand the Havamin and the Maskana, so to speak. I mean, don't take me literally on that. But I mean the Mishnah Rishona versus the Mishnah Achrona. That I can understand. Kamaisa, the first Mishnah, was operating with the logic of Ula, that the reason for the Gzera is Shema Yimzin Ula kos bebayis bebeis haviyah, and she's going to give her brothers and her sisters, whoever it is, who are not kohanim, to eat from the truma. However, the Mishnah Rishona is saying that in the case of Higias Man, is ochelas mishalo, the Baal has to provide her with mizonos. Therefore, he puts her into a separate room. There's no chashash that she's going to divvy up the truma amongst the members of her family. Ubas Raiso, but on the other hand, the ultimate decision of the later Bezdin to overrule the first Bezdin was Mishum Simpon, that maybe they'll find it to be mum at the time in the Suud, and that's going to be Kiddushei Tos L'Mafreya, and she is eating Truma. She'll be a Zara that's eating Truma. So all this works out according to Ula. We understand the Mishnah Rishona, but we also at the same time appreciate the Mishnah Achrona.